Welcome to our first Thirst of Knowledge video about Windows Server 2019 overview. My name is Manfred Helber. I'm a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional and will give you an overview about what's new in Windows Server 2019, which editions will be available, and a few basics about licensing. All of our Windows Server 2019 videos are also recorded in German language. There we have the title Wissensdurst. So if you prefer the German language, you can switch to the German version, but all of the videos are also recorded as English language based version with the title Thirst for Knowledge. So 2 years ago, Windows Server 2016 was introduced. Windows Server 2016 had a lot of new and a lot of extended features. Absolutely new in Windows Server 2016, for example, was Storage Spaces Direct, a great functionality we will see today again, where we have a huge development in Windows Server 2019. Also new introduced were the container support on Windows Server 2016. We had in Windows Server 2016 a lot of extended security features. In Windows Server 2016, we had the shielded virtual machines with the Host Guardian service and a lot of additional new functionality. In Windows Server 2019, we have a development of these features, and we have again a lot of new features like, for example, System Insights, Storage Migration Service, Extended Management with Windows Admin Center, and so on. Windows Server 2019 is available in 3 editions. We have Windows Server 2019 Essentials, we have Windows Server 2019 Standard, and Windows Server 2019 Datacenter. Windows Server 2019 Essentials is licensed based on the server. So we have to buy a license for each server. Windows Server 2019 Essentials supports up to 2 CPU sockets and up to 64 gigabytes of memory. These are the limits. And Windows Server 2019 Essentials does not require client access licenses, but we have included 25 user access rights and 50 device access rights. So you cannot extend this with client access licenses. You do not need client access licenses, and there are no client access licenses included in Essentials. But you are allowed to use Windows Server 2019 Essentials in an environment with maximum 25 IT users. We do not look at the Active Directory accounts regarding this licensing requirements. We are looking at the named users. So this is important. The Active Directory account has to be mapped to a named user, a real individual. Essentials licensing is the same or similar we had in Windows Server 2016. What's new? Windows Server 2019 Essentials does not include the Essentials role. So we don't have the Essentials dashboard, we don't have the client backup, we don't have the extended wizards. We have the situation that now Essentials is usable, more flexible. And it can be managed with the Windows Admin Center. Windows Admin Center is a great solution. It's a web-based management portal that's installed locally. We can use Windows Admin Center to manage each Windows Server 2019 edition. We can use Windows Admin Center also to manage previous Windows Server versions. And we can use Windows Admin Center to manage Windows Server 2019 Essentials browser-based locally. So no Essentials role, but still the title Essentials. We have some additional, let's say, licensing requirements for Essentials. So if Essentials is configured as a domain controller, it has to be the domain controller with the FSMO roles, the flexible single master operations roles. We are not allowed to configure subdomains. Windows Server Essentials always has to be the root of the domain. We are not allowed to configure two-way relationship trusts. So this is written in the licensing requirements, but Essentials is a great solution for smaller environments, for small companies that only have this 25 IT users. Windows Server 2019 Standard and Datacenter is licensed based on the CPU cores. Again, the same licensing we have in Windows Server 2016. We are looking at the servers, the sockets, and the cores. If we license a server correctly with Windows Server 2019 Standard, we have 2 virtual Windows Server rights on this licensed server. If we license a physical server with Windows Server 2019 Datacenter, we have unlimited virtual usage rights on this licensed server. Let's look in detail on this licensing of Server Standard and Datacenter. We have to license all cores in a server with the same edition and version. We have to license minimum 18 cores, and we have to license minimum 16 cores in each physical server. So minimum 8 cores per CPU socket and minimum 16 cores per physical server. So let's think about a few examples. If we have a physical server with 8 cores, we have to license 16 of them. If we have a server with 20 physical cores, we have to license 20 cores. All of the cores have to be licensed, minimum 16 cores in each server, minimum 8 cores in each CPU socket. The requirement for the OEM license is that each server has to have minimum 1 base license, and the base license includes the 16 cores, the minimum requirement for the physical server. Additional cores can be licensed via additional core packs. Windows Server 2019 Datacenter is available in the long-term servicing channel. This is what we buy. This is where we use the OEM license. The previous version was Windows Server 2016. Windows Server 2019 in the middle is our latest version, and in 2 or 3 years we will have the next Windows Server version in the long-term servicing channel. The semi-annual channel was introduced in October 2017. Semi-annual channel started with Windows Server 1709, the next one is 1803, the latest one is 1809. It was introduced with Windows Server 2019, and we will have additional semi-annual channel versions next year. The long-term servicing channel is always named by the year. So Windows Server 2016, Windows Server 2019. We have a new version each 2 or 3 years. We have mainstream support of 5 years and extended support of 5 years. So overall 10 years of support for the version. And we have the installation option with graphical user interface or server core. In the semi-annual channel, we have a new version every 6 months. So we have a faster innovation cycle, but we have only support of 18 months for each version. So if you started with version 1709, you should think about migrating to 1803 or 1809. But this version 19XX, the first one in calendar year 2019, this is the version where you absolutely have to migrate, because then we have 18 months between and we do not have any longer support for 1709. So faster innovation cycle. We don't have all features in semi-annual channel. Semi-annual channel is only installable as server core or nano server. And for example, we don't have storage spaces direct in there. The focus of semi-annual channel is containers. So if you run containerized workloads, we recommend to use the semi-annual channel. If you run infrastructure workloads, hyper-converged infrastructure, and things like this, we recommend the long-term servicing channel. The long-term servicing channel is always the channel you buy. You buy the long-term servicing channel with your OEM license, your volume license, and if you add a software assurance, and you can add software assurance also to the OEM license, then you have the choice to stay in the long-term servicing channel with a lot of software assurance advantages, or to move in the semi-annual channel with all the software assurance advantages and the additional option to use this 6-month innovation cycle with a focus on containers. It is also important to know that Windows Server 2019 Standard and Datacenter require new Windows Server 2019 client access licenses. So you are always allowed to use the newer client access license version to access your previous servers, but you are not allowed to use a previous client access license version to access the newer servers. A client access license is always bought for the user or the device, and this user, this real individuum, is allowed to access every Windows server in the network that is not newer or that has no later version than the client access license version. We often have questions about this because in the past we had these R2 versions. 2012 R2, 2008 R2. There's no Windows Server 2016 R2. We will have Windows Server 2019 now and in the future always this major releases in the long-term servicing channel. In the semi-annual channel with this previous version steps, there are no new client access license. So there's no client access license 1709 or 1803. This is still the 2016 client access license, and 1809, 1903 and so on. Here we have the Windows Server 2019 client access license. If you want to participate in the innovation of Windows Server, there's also an insider program. We can see this at the top of this slide. Every 2 or 4 weeks there will be a new insider version of Windows Server where we can see what's developed, what are the next innovations in Windows Server. This is accessible via the Windows Insider program. So trends in the IT industry, when we look at the market, are actually enhanced security, hyper-converged infrastructure, application innovation, and hybrid data center. And these are exactly the areas where Windows Server 2019 develops most, where we have the most new and extended features. Windows Server 2019 can be used in a hybrid world. We have the support for on-premises, we have the functionality in Microsoft Azure Stack, we can run a hybrid cloud, and for sure we can run our Windows Server 2019 workloads in Microsoft Azure, and via the integrated connectivity we can combine these worlds together to a real hybrid cloud data center. Let's have a look at these Windows Server 2019 innovation areas: hybrid data center, hyper-converged infrastructure, enhanced security, and application innovation. We have several unique capabilities with Microsoft Azure. First of all, things like Azure Backup, Azure Site Recovery to bring some powerful features to our on-premises environment to store our data in a second high available data center. The storage migration service is great. We will have another dedicated video about this, to migrate from previous file servers to newer file server versions, or to migrate from on-premises to Azure, or you could also migrate from Azure to on-premises systems. So it's a flexible service to bring together your previous and your latest versions of Windows Server regarding the file services and file shares, and also to work in a hybrid world. The Azure Network Adapter supports us to have an easy connectivity to the Azure networks, and Windows Admin Center is an on-premises web-based management tool. It's really, really powerful. We will also have a dedicated video about this with a lot of live demos how to work with it. And Windows Admin Center integrates in this hybrid world. We can use local Active Directory for authentication. We can work without Active Directory. We can have an connectivity to Azure Active Directory. We can manage Azure Backup, Azure Site Recovery, Azure Update, Azure File Sync, and things like this via Windows Admin Center. It's installed locally. It's a small embedded web server. It's easy to handle. It's really great. Windows Admin Center actually has more than 1.7 million servers under management worldwide. So a lot of customers already decided to install Windows Admin Center to work with this great new web-based management tool. And because it's web-based, it doesn't matter which client device is used. So we can use a web browser on a Windows computer, we can use another platform, we can use a smartphone, we can use a tablet, whatever you want, and where we have a browser that supports this latest technology. When we look at the management before Windows Admin Center, we had Windows Server with graphical user interface on the left-hand side. Windows Server 2016, 2012 R2, 2012, 2008 R2. On the right-hand side, we can see Windows Server 2016, 2012 R2, 2012 in a Server Core installation. Server Core was introduced in Windows Server 2008, so we only show here till Windows Server 2012 because this is the latest Server Core version that can be managed with Windows Admin Center. Because the interesting thing is, when we use Windows Admin Center, the management looks the same. We have the same web-based graphical user interface to manage the servers with graphical user interface and to manage the server core. So we have the same management experience, and I think this is a great enabler for Windows Server Core. I mentioned we have the Windows Server Core since Windows Server 2008. But in Germany, actually, we don't have this high adoption rate I would expect, because I would absolutely recommend Windows Server Core because it has a smaller footprint, it has a reduced attack surface, and the most important thing is we need less patches, less updates than on the Windows Server with graphical user interface. So we have an optimized management of this system. But in the past, the management was different because we didn't have the graphical user interface. We still don't have the graphical user interface, but we have this new web-based management console where we have the same experience on the graphical servers and the server core. So again, to mention, graphical servers we can manage backwards 2008 R2. The server core can be managed backwards to Windows Server 2012. This is the latest version. The previous version, the oldest previous version, we can manage. Regarding the other tools like System Center and the management console-based tools, they are still available. There will be a Windows Server related System Center version. The System Center 2019 will be introduced in the first quarter of next year, or it will be available in the first quarter of next year. System Center is still the solution for a private cloud environment where we will have delegated admins, where we'll have delegated users, where we have self-services, where we have runbooks and workflows that run automatically, where we have enhanced monitoring. This is still System Center. Windows Admin Center is complementary, an easy to handle tool that's available via web browser. It's installed locally, that extends the management of our server. Windows Admin Center always gets the latest new functionalities, so we have a lot of new features in Windows Server 2019 that are available in Windows Admin Center for management. Under the hood, Windows Admin Center runs PowerShell. So PowerShell is always involved, and the WMI is the technology we use to get information about the server, performance information, and things like this. I already mentioned Azure File Sync. Azure File Sync is a great technology for a hybrid world where we sync our file servers to Azure and from Azure to branches. Then we can optimize the, let's say, bandwidth, because we only sync once into the cloud and then we distribute it across a lot of servers in our ecosystem, in our domain, in our company. Hyper-converged infrastructure, the next big topic in Windows Server 2019. In hyper-converged infrastructure, we have again the Windows Admin Center as management solution, as powerful tool to manage our hyper-converged infrastructure. We have extensions for two-node hyper-converged infrastructure. We have extended resiliency, it's called nested resiliency, to allow two simultaneous failures. And we have a new witness option, the USB witness for edge configurations, where we have the focus on an optimized price. We have industry-leading performance and scale. We can scale up to 4 petabytes of data storage, and we can scale up to 14,000 IOs per second. This is what actually is proven. Maybe there's more IOs possible, but the latest performance record was nearly 14 million IOs per second, and it was 4 petabytes of storage. And in Windows Server 2019, we have support. It's new for storage class memory. Today we support hard disk drives, solid state disks, NVMe disks, the non-volatile memory express disks. And in Windows Server 2019, we support additional the storage class memory, where we have again an increased performance, low latency. So for performance optimized systems, storage class memory is great. Let's talk a little bit about hyper-converged infrastructure. When we look at a traditional configuration on the left-hand side, we have our storage, our SANs, we have the storage fabric, the hypervisors. These are usually the industry standard servers. We have a lot of additional appliances and the Ethernet switches. In the hyper-converged infrastructure, we only use industry standard servers and the Ethernet switches, and the rest is done by the software, by Windows Server 2016 or Windows Server 2019. So Windows Server 2019 provides the software-defined storage, the software-defined networking, and for sure also the virtualization of the compute workload via Hyper-V. We can build such an hyper-converged infrastructure based on and build your own basis. So we can select the hard disk drives, the memory modules, the drives, the flash drives, the CPUs, the main boards, the chassis. But then we have always to check if this component is certified for Windows Server 2016 or 2019. We always have to check if they have the additional qualifiers. We have to test if these components work together. We have to validate everything. We could also choose a partner offering. The advantage of the partner offering is that the partner offering is pre-validated. So the partner selected the components. The partner usually designed different, let's say, scales. So for performance optimized, capacity optimized, mixed use, and the partner certifies the whole solution as an Windows Server software-defined solution. WSSD is the name of the program, Windows Server software-defined program, where we have the certified solutions for hyper-converged infrastructure. We have several partners there. We have more than 50 solutions there. And these solutions that are listed on microsoft.com/WSSD. WSSD. They are certified, pre-validated. All listed systems are certified for Windows Server 2016, and now more and more servers will be validated for Windows Server 2019. Microsoft.com/WSSD, your landing page if you are looking for a validated, certified solution for hyper-converged infrastructure. Enhanced security capabilities. Let's talk about this topic. We have now shielded virtual machines also for Linux guests. So we can run Linux guests in shielded virtual machines. And we have the Windows Defender Advanced Threat Protection. Windows Defender was introduced for Windows Server in the Windows Server 2016 version. Now we have integrated the Defender Advanced Threat Protection, where we have a really powerful engine, and we can have a behavior-based recognition of malware in this advanced threat protection, like we know it from the client. But in the Windows Server, it's included by default. We have Exploit Guard and the System Guard runtime for additional security in our Windows Server operating system. So the Windows Server 2019 is highly secure by default, based on the design of the system, based on the integrated firewall, based on the Defender with advanced threat protection and the additional functionality. Let's talk about the part faster innovation for applications. We have Linux containers on Windows host. This is new. In the previous version, Windows Server 2016, we had container support. Now we have support for Linux containers. We have support for Server Fabric and Kubernetes for container orchestration. We have the Windows subsystem for Linux and optimized images for server core and nano servers. So the images for the server core and nano server are now smaller than in Windows Server 2016 to optimize again the things like patch management and footprint. When we look at this application innovation, we can see that it started with Windows Server 2016 with the introduction of containers, and it developed Windows Server 2019, 1803, and now Windows Server 2019. As I mentioned in the slide where we talked about the semi-annual channel and the long-term servicing channel, we can see the focus of application innovation and containers is on the semi-annual channel here. The important thing to know is that Windows Server 2008 R2 is end of support in January 2020. So we are not only talking about the new server version with Windows Server 2019, we are also talking about the end of support of this Windows Server 2008 R2, Windows Server 2008. So it's a little bit more than 1 year now left for the migration, and for sure maybe you need some arguments for your customer to decide if you want to migrate. You absolutely should migrate, because when we have the end of the support of Windows Server 2008 R2, we do not get any security updates, any extensions for this server operating system. Let's have a look at the link on the bottom of this slide. I took the information from this page. I put this on some slides because this Windows Server comparison shows us the feature development starting from Windows Server 2008 R2 via Windows Server 2012 R2, 2016, and now Windows Server 2019. We will see in the next slides a lot of new features in Windows Server 2019. So it's a, let's say, overview of everything that's new, and I will only focus on the features that are completely new. We will also see a lot of features that were extended, that were developed. We will not talk about them, but we will talk about the brand new features here on these next slides. First of all, I mentioned the storage migration service, an easy service to migrate from previous file servers to latest file server versions. System Insights is great. We will see this in a few additional video recordings about Windows Server 2019. With System Insights, we can use analytics capabilities native in Windows Server to get, based on predictive analytics, some trend information. So for example, when will I run out of space in my storage volume? When will I run out of network capacity? When will I run out of memory in the operating system based on the usage of the past days, weeks, months, or years? The Azure Network Adapter, a great solution to connect to Microsoft Azure. Enhanced Azure Active Directory authentication, so we can switch from an on-premises Active Directory if we want this to an Azure Active Directory, because Windows Server 2019 can join Azure Active Directory like we know it from our client operating system. So Windows 10 is capable to be Azure Active Directory joined. This is now also available in Windows Server. Then we have the nested mirror accelerated parity. This is the extended parity for 2-node storage spaces direct cluster configurations to allow 2 simultaneous failures. We have heard about the USB thumb drive support for as a witness in 2-node storage spaces direct configurations, not only 2-node, but it's focused on 2-node hyper-converged infrastructure deployments. Here we see a lot of extensions, for example, for storage spaces direct and for the mirror accelerated parity, but I mentioned we will only focus on the new features in this overview. Then we have the new deduplication for the resilient file system. Deduplication is available since Windows Server 2012 for the new technology file system. Now it's available for the resilient file system in storage spaces direct scenarios. It was already introduced in version 18.03 for single volumes with the resilient file system. Now it's available for storage spaces direct scenarios. We have a cluster-wide monitoring for extended monitoring capabilities in Windows servers. We have the cluster sets to have a single namespace if we run more clusters, if we run additional clusters. So it's great for scale in hosting scenarios, in huge data center scenarios, to have the single namespace for several clusters. We have a kernel soft reboot for Windows Server software-defined validated hardware. So we need a specific hardware, we need a validated hardware, but then we can have faster reboot times to reduce application downtime if we do a kernel update. We have the support for the persistent memory. I mentioned this for a new class of storage technology with high performance and low latency. We have the situation that we have a virtual network peering. It's new in Windows Server 2019 with a high-speed connectivity between virtual networks, so to have an optimized traffic between different fabric. So this is available in Windows Server 2019 as a new feature here. We have an improved software-defined networking gateway. We have a precision time protocol. We have a support for the leap second. So a lot of optimized things in the networking. We have the LAT-BAT support, the latency optimized background transfer for background traffic, where we have to look at the latency, where we need to have a latency optimized protocol. This is now available in Windows Server 2019. We have the enhanced Windows Defender with the advanced threat protection. I mentioned this. We have the shielded virtual machines. Shielded virtual machines is great to have a separation between the infrastructure administration and the VM administration to ensure that your host admins can never ever access the content of a virtual machine. Not in your cluster, not in a remote site, so it's absolutely secure. We have the host guardian service with an offline mode for shielded virtual machines. We have the VM Connect for easier connectivity to shielded virtual machines and enhanced security via a cluster hardening in Windows Server 2019. We have encryption for software-defined networking, so also enhanced security for the data transfer in software-defined networking scenarios. We have a support for native Linux containers. In the past, we introduced containers in Windows Server 2016 to run Windows Server containers, or we could run Hyper-V containers based on Linux. Now we can run Linux containers to run these Linux container applications directly on Windows Server. We have server core based image reduction, so the server core gets smaller. For server core, we have a new great functionality. It's called Features on Demand. Server core has the reduced graphical user interface. This is great when we look at the footprint, when we look at the management. But we have sometimes applications that need extended features, but they don't need the full graphical user interface. And Features on Demand provides additional features to the server core without adding the full graphical user interface. This enhances the usability of server core, brings additional value to it, enhances the application support. Interesting is that we have already a SQL Server support for server core. We don't need the Features on Demand there. SQL Server core support was introduced in SQL Server 2017, and for sure it's there in Windows Server in SQL Server 2019. And we have the support for server core new in Exchange 2019. Exchange 2019 is available since a few days, and Windows Server 2019 has the new recommended installation option on server core. We've already heard we have the Kubernetes support for management, for orchestration of containers on Windows Server. We have the Windows subsystem for Linux to bring things like command prompt and PowerShell to Linux environments. So a lot of new features in Windows Server 2019. So we have a lot of arguments to migrate to Windows Server 2019, and we have always to look at the end of support of Windows Server 2008 R2. If you need additional information about how to migrate to a later version of Windows Server, the best source is the Windows Server Upgrade Server. It's Upgrade Center. It's available via aka.ms/upgrade center. It's a web page where you can select your actual running Windows Server operating system, for example, Windows Server 2008 R2. Then you can select your planned target, Windows Server 2012 R2, Windows Server 2016, Windows Server 2019. And then you get a lot of additional resources, recommendations, tools for migrating to this latest operating system version. Windows Server Upgrade Server, aka.ms/upgrade center. We have seen a lot of powerful new features for hybrid, for hyper-converged, regarding the security, regarding the application innovation. And as I already mentioned, Windows Server runs in this hybrid world on premises. It's the platform for Azure Stack, and for sure also in Microsoft Azure. And for example, via the Azure Network Adapter, you can bring this all together. If you want to stay informed about this new latest videos we record for Windows Server, You are invited to join our news channel on LinkedIn. You can use the QR code on the right-hand side. It's the Windows Business Solution Club news channel. Most of the content is actually in German language, but as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, we will publish all the Windows Server topics also in English language, and so you are invited to stay informed here about the latest recordings. And if you are interested, for sure you can also connect with me. You can use the QR code on the left-hand side. This guides you to my Twitter handle. There I'm usually writing in English language, and for sure also LinkedIn, where I'm also to find and where you can ping me. Thank you for your time for this first Thirst of Knowledge video about Windows Server 2019, and you are invited to join the additional videos about Storage Migration Service, Windows Admin Center, Storage Spaces Direct, Enhanced Security, and so on. We will record in the next days and publish in our YouTube channel. Thank you very much and goodbye.